All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here with us for our community conversation. We are, this is, three meetings, three different locations, but the same meeting information. So we held this meeting on Monday at Varina High School, and we're here tonight, and then we'll do it one more time at the Henrico Theater on Monday at 10 a.m. So just trying to, um, I guess in essence, give as many people the opportunity to not have to go, but so far from their home to participate and be in the meetings if they can. We have two main presentations tonight, and then we'll open the floor for just general conversation. This morning I was watching, Channel 8 was on. Um, and I heard them talking about the data center case on Darbytown Road. And then the reporter said that tonight's meeting was a continuation of that conversation, which is incorrect. That's not what tonight meetings is about. So we have some exciting things going on within our recreation and parks department, and Mr. John Zanino is here to make that presentation. And then Gene Moore, Assistant Director, is here to talk about a proposed um, new zoning classification. And proposed, meaning we are just starting the conversation. All right. And so rural conservation and prime agriculture. And so she'll dig into that, and then we'll open the floor. I do want to recognize our county managers here with us tonight as well, and shout out to our media relations, public relations teams who are with us, and our community office in the back. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. And so we're going to jump right into it now. One thing I'm going to ask, if you can, um, Mrs. Zanino's presentation was only designed to take like 10 minutes. And on Monday, it was like 50 minutes because of all of the questions, and then we got off topic, etc. So we can just let him present his information, and then we can talk about anything that you want to talk about recreation and park wise. Okay? All right. Turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I am excited to talk. We've got a lot of exciting projects in the Varina district, so I'm going to talk about a few of those this evening. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the visitor experience that we're doing at 4 Mile Creek. So if you're not familiar with this project, 4 Mile Creek is a trailhead to the Capitol Trail. It's actually the busiest trailhead on the Capitol Trail, and we will be doing a project to build a structure out there to interpret Henrico's rich history on that property. So this slide kind of shows you a concept plan of what that will look like. We're really trying to lean into the cyclist community because that is our primary user group. So the way this visitor, we're calling it a visitor experience, it will be a replica of the original courthouse building on 3 sides. So you'll see the facade of the original courthouse building, but on the back side, it will be so that it's not a full to really make this up till dusk. We don't have to staff this. This can be open whenever the park is open, but it will provide us the ability to interpret our history through multimedia and graphics on the inside. And it really gives us that flexibility. Cyclists can come in and out. They don't have to leave their bikes, but we can still interpret all of the rich history here in Varina and throughout the county. So we're excited about that. We're under the design phase now. We're trying to fast track this to be under construction in the spring, and then completion either summer or fall of next year. Very similar location, actually just kind of across the road. Earlier this summer, we had a master plan meeting to talk about this trail. This is the New Market Heights Trail. It's literally across the street from the 4 Mile Creek parking lot that we just talked about. This would be a trail that runs from that New Market Heights property all the way down to Deep Bottom. So it's around 3.2 miles. And it really creates a north-south spur off of the Capitol Trail. You could actually get from Dory Park down to Deep Bottom Park using the Capitol Trail and then this trail. So just wanted to provide a brief update. So we are still in the design phase of this project. We did apply for a federal grant. It's a transportation alternative grant. I'm looking for some funding to construct this. But later this calendar year, Public Works will be starting a project at the New Market Heights Park area, which is a wetland and stream restoration project. And during that project, they'll be able to start some of the infrastructure for the trail network on the north side with that project. And then we have some funding with the Deep Bottom bond referendum to be able to do some of the trails when we do that project. We actually have our design money now, and construction will come in a year or two, but we'll be able to do some of the trail network on the southern section, and then we're looking for funding to kind of fill that gap. And then another project that's not recreation specific, but did want to give you guys an update. So on our property out in, we call it the Wilton property, schools will be building the first living building that is a K through 12 educational facility in the world that will receive the living building certification. So if you're not familiar with the living building certification, it is kind of like a LEED certification, but it is literally the highest standard you can receive. There's only 30 buildings in the world that have received this certification, and this would be the first education K through 12 facility. So they are going to be under construction later this year with the completion of school year next year. It's a 15,000 square foot facility on 62 acres out at the Wilton property. Here's kind of a rendering of where it will sit on that property. But a little more about the living building challenge. There's 7 standards, or they call them petals, that you have to achieve. So it's really about your place. So restoring a healthy interrelationship with nature, water, net positive water usage. So not just, and also energy, net positive energy. So not just off the grid, but feeding the grid. And then there's health and happiness, materials, equity, and beauty. So this is really an exciting thing. This will serve all of Henrico, but specifically the Specialty Center at Varina. The Environmental Specialty Center will be able to use this as a hub, and then other schools will be able to take field trips to this location. So those are a kind of overview of projects. A couple that I don't have slides for, but wanted to talk because they're so close to this area. Taylor Farm Park. We just received our first national award for park innovation. We were the they only choose one in the nation, so we were chosen in 2025. We received that back in September. But due to its popularity, we have a couple weeks ago started a project to add more parking. So if you've been out there and you see some work, that's what we're doing. We're adding about 100 spaces in 2 different locations. We're also adding some bus parking and then a storage facility out there. So that should be completed here in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And that we did some other improvements earlier in the spring. But if you're out there and wondering what's going on, that's what we're doing on that property. And then just up the road from here, there's another exciting a project that we're working on out at the Runnymede tract of land, which will be a community farm. So next week we're actually kicking that off, but we are going to be looking for residents to who are interested in that to apply. We're working with a group called Happily Natural Day that will be kind of administering the program for us, and we'll be soliciting that. So more to come next week on that, but that's just up the road from here. So we're kind of excited to kick that off. Some programs as I wrap up. So this weekend we have at Dory the Fall Festival with the Farmers Market, and then coming up on the holiday season, Clark Palmore will be doing an open house in December. This year, we started this with COVID, but we've been doing it every year since. The Holiday Express Tour, it will actually be starting this year in the Varina district. And then we're doing a an event at Dory Park, a magical holiday evening in December. At Henrico Theater, we'll be hosting the Jazz Ambassadors. It's actually the U.S. Army Band. They are only in this part of the country every 4 to 5 years, so we're super excited that they selected us. We hosted them maybe a decade ago. It's a free concert, and that is coming up in November. And then we have a ton of movies. So if you're interested, you can go to our website, dollar movies, dollar for popcorn, dollar for candy. And then the last thing I'd like to talk about is we recently launched a new way of providing us feedback. One of the things that we have noticed in our park system is oftentimes when you're in our parks, on our trails, at our shelters, and you notice something wrong, you may not know the best way to give us that information. So we have launched this form, and you will start to see signs in our parks. We've actually ordered several hundred signs where you can scan that sign and fill out a simple form on your phone of where are you, what are you seeing, you know, is it a safety concern, is it just a general concern, and you can provide us that feedback. This does not replace any of the other ways that you provide us feedback, but it does really, it's geared towards you're in the park and you see something and you want to give us that feedback. So this is live now, and in the next several days and weeks, you'll see some signs pop up. But like I said, I think we're putting 300 to 400 signs up across our park system to really just give you another method of communicating with us. And with that, I will answer any questions you may have. Yes.
Yeah, had three topics you brought up specifically with the Parks and Rec people. You mentioned 4 Mile Creek Trailhead.
Mhm.
What sort of community input will there be into the selection of the exhibits that you have there?
So our history staff has put together some ideas and some stories that we can tell. We do have a historic preservation committee that will be looking at that. So if you have feedback, you can certainly provide that to us. You can also get that information to those committee members. So as we go into developing the stories, they will be the ones helping us decide what to choose. We're also going to make it so that we can have rotating exhibits, so it's not just the same. So if we have a handful of stories there, we'll also have some exhibits that can change so that we don't have to limit ourselves to these are the only stories that will ever be there. And we might be able to every 6 months or quarterly update some of those exhibits to tell some other stories. So we're going to design it in a way that it's not just what you see when we open.
I suggested somewhere on your website, whatever, that you put the option that people could have suggestions or reach out, for comments.
Yeah.
Rather than just be asking.
So we can create a project page, and on all of our project pages, we'll have some, way for you to give us that feedback.
Okay. 2 other questions real quickly. You mentioned with the Taylor Farm has been wonderful. I was there the day of the dedication. We go out there frequently and walk around. I did ask the day that it was there, it was opened, and somebody said they'd be looking into it, and that's been a year or so now. I'm just wondering the possibility of having walking trails similar like at nature, as nice as it is to have the 16-foot wide black asphalt in the blazing sun in the summer, having a trail like Dory where you can walk through the woods on a little gravel or some sort of path where you're in the shade to go. There's a lot of property there. And when I brought that up a year or so ago, said, yes, we'll look into that and you'll hopefully see something down the road. Do you have an update on that?
So I can tell you there are other trails on the master plan. We haven't actually identified when we would do those. We can look at some of those. There are some limitations on the property. The center of the site is all wet. So you can do things like trails, but you have to consider how you get across those wet areas. But there are other trails that were not built that are on the master plan. We were trying to focus on some of the infrastructure where we were seeing high volumes, but we can certainly look at what are the other trails we could do.
Last quick one.
Yeah.
I'll certainly pass the mic around here. You mentioned things in the area and whatever here, and kind of the elephant in the room was a week ago, just down the corner here, the street, the bulldozers and everything came out, took out the beautiful landscaping that was done at Elko Track and Elko Road. There's a sign up that says Elko Family Memorial. I went on the county website and searched for it to find out what that is, what's going on about it. And the only thing that showed up was the plan development plans that showed the building. Can somebody here on this appropriate, I assume it's something with Parks and Recs, just let us know what that is, what it's going to be, because I searched on the county website, could not find any information on it.
So I have some information. Mr. Nelson might have a little bit more. Our department has been working with EDA on that structure. So I do have some information on what the structure will be. Not vastly different. We're going to do a little bit different at 4 Mile Creek, but I can certainly get your information and kind of get you some more information.
So it is, the idea comes from a settlement between the EDA with some property that, and I cannot think of the family's name. The Fisher and Gothright family. Yeah, and so, part of that settlement was for us to create a memorial, and that's where it's gonna be, right there at that site, so, yeah. Yep. That I'm not sure, what is it gonna compose? Do we know? Yeah, okay. Okay, all right. Well, do you wanna share now? You wanna come up? Yeah. And yeah, the reason that we are using the microphone is because of persons who are watching online.
Okay. Hi, I'm Margaret Bryant, but I'm formerly Margaret Fisher, so that's kind of where I'm attached to this. When the dummy airport was built in World War II, the land that the dummy airfield was built on belonged to several Elko families: Fishers, Garthrights, Crosticks, Smith, Valentine, the whole list. And that land was taken from them for the war effort. From there, the land was promised back to the people, okay? But then that didn't happen because the federal government then gave it over to the state, and then the state decided to build the Lost City on that land. If you've lived in Elko long enough, you know what the Lost City is. From there, the land then in turn went over and got sold, I believe, to the county, or granted to the county and the EDA to develop. In the meantime, there were several cemeteries that were found in the land that belonged to those families. As part of a settlement that we had in trying to get those families either to keep the cemetery and keep those people buried where they belonged, or find a suitable relocation spot, the Elko Family Memorial was then in turn part of the settlement that was granted to us. It is not solely for the Fishers and Garthrights, even though a lot of the information is coming from that, because that's where we have the information from. It is about for all of the families of Elko that were here. That land was taken from them when they first came in for the war effort in World War II. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The Christiansons are part of that vibe of what it's about. There have been several requests over the last 8 years for people to kind of get information and for us to pull things together. And so we have a lot of documentation, photos, letters, and things like that that came from those families during that time period. Then those will be part of the displays in the memorial. It is a static display, so kind of whatever's there is there, but it is well done by the architects as well as the designing company that Henrico County is working with.
Thank you for sharing that. Took me a second to take you on the road with us. Ma'am, what's your name? Did you hear what I said? I said I'm gonna take you on the road. And yeah, so in my notes we had a semi-public memorial park, 1-story open air structure, associated infrastructure, proposed 2-acre portion of land. So is what you just heard was way more than what I would have shared. So thank you. One question, let me just, well, no, you go ahead. And then I had a question that I know somebody wanted me to ask in public that is not here. Go ahead.
My name is Stephen Schleck, and I had a question on the New Market Heights Trail, similar to last meeting earlier in the summer. Is the plan still to have the trail end up at the Dairy Queen?
Yeah, that's roughly the end point. So to connect to the Capitol Trail, and then it would go all the way down to Deep Bottom.
Right. So I had suggested, and several people at a prior meeting, that they move it down a little bit from the Dairy Queen just because that intersection is so busy.
Yeah, I don't know the final alignment, but we took that into consideration. So the design team is looking at that, but roughly in that general area.
Okay, thank you.
So I know there was some concern, light update about the pickleball court. Do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, so I actually just went out and tested the lights because I wanted to see for myself what's going on. The older lights, we were having issues getting lamps, so we have just decided that we are just ordering a whole new LED package. So all the fixtures that are out there are going to get replaced. There is a push button to actually activate it, but it's on the outside of the courts, so that will get moved, so it'll be more accessible. So we are, that has been ordered. I should, within the next day or so, know the delivery and installation, but all of the lights you see down there, all the fixtures are going to go away, and they're going to be a new LED Musco fixture, similar to what we just put in at Pouncey Track. So I don't know the exact date, but it's been ordered, and then same with, there's some amenities coming. We're going to get some benches out there. We've got some on order. We're going to put some out there until the permanent ones get here. Actually, they're going to be delivered in the morning. But that's the update on the lights.
All right. Any other questions before? Yes. Parks and Rec. Yep.
The lights that are going in, are they going to be directional so that they are going down on instead of
Yeah, so
illuminating the night sky?
So the new lights are very directional. Those they might still be on because I pressed the button. They kind of go everywhere. The new ones pretty much are just going to be focused on the court. They are on somewhat of a timer, so when you press the button, it'll illuminate for 20 to 30 minutes, and then they go off. So if there's no one there, like if there's no one playing right now, there will be no lights on. You press the button, it comes on, and then only in the window of times that we allow them. So you can't go out there at like 2 a.m. and press it. But yes, the footprint is actually going to be significantly improved by changing out those fixtures.
You get the microphone.
Do you handle this building as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay. The new light that they put on after someone stole the HVAC unit, is there any way that could be directed more towards the ground? Because it shines right in our bedroom window through our blackout curtains.
I can absolutely look at that. Actually, if after the meeting you want to show me exactly what that light is, I can look at that. So.
And we'll take care of it. So we won't just look at it. We'll take care of it. Yep. Any other questions before we move on to the prime time subject for tonight? All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Ms. Jean Moore, our Assistant Director for Planning, is going to come and talk about a new proposed zoning category.
Thank you, Reverend Nelson. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here to give you an update of the development of our 2045 comprehensive plan. I did want to start to give you a brief overview of some of the recent citizen engagement, which led to the development initially of the vision, statements and policies, and ultimately through rigorous feedback on many different engagement events. Ultimately, this proposal of a new land use designation as part of the plan called prime agriculture / rural conservation. And I'll touch on that later on in this presentation. Oops. So how do I get to the other? Oh. So as you know, public engagement is the cornerstone of creating a vision for Henrico County. and its comprehensive plan, which is the document that helps guide land use decisions for the next 20 years. So in addition to our initial analysis and doing the background reports that began in 2022, then early on, the county created an engagement plan called Henrico Next. And that is to be inclusive. And it's really simply to try to educate people, get the word out, get them engaged, what the purpose of the comprehensive plan is and why it is important. So this included numerous participation in community events. You may have seen us at Dory Park or Farmers Market on the West End. Just this past weekend, we were at the Native Plant Festival at Dory Park. So after that, more formal, we held listening sessions in each of the 5 magisterial districts in the summer of 2024. And that was to make sure that our visions and goals that we heard early on, people could come in and make sure they were in line with the community's desires and aspirations for the county. So the most recent public engagement focused on feedback specifically to what we call the future land use map. And this is the part of the comprehensive plan that recommends specific land use groups for every single property in the county. So when we compare that to our current 2026 comp plan, the draft revisions that we presented were fairly minor compared to the previous draft. I think overall, we were recommending only 80 land use changes. And what I mean by land use changes is designating something from, say, I don't know, to office to commercial or residential to multifamily. Those are those large group categories I'm speaking of. So what we really did instead is focus on creating what we call redevelopment corridors that kind of focus on our older corridors, Patterson, Broad, Williamsburg Road. I think we have 10 to 15, don't quote me on that. So we're looking at that to sort of infuse and revitalize those areas that we have that are already well served by infrastructure and services. So we posted our revised land use draft on our website in Henrico Next. But we also had another series we called suggestion sessions this past spring, and of course, in each of the magisterial district and the high schools. These sessions allowed residents and stakeholders to come in, watch a little bit of movie, and then interact one-on-one with staff. And you can see we had maps rolled out that kind of showed what's existing in the comp plan and what's proposed. And they had the opportunity to just have conversations and sit down and leave them their suggestions that we recorded with laptops, or they could do it online with an interactive map. So with this last round, overall, we had about 130 residents and provided their insights on the future land use map. When we looked at those comments, which were about 195, we noticed that emerged like 5 general key themes. And that was people focused on comments with development intensity management, transportation infrastructure, supporting development and reinvestment and revitalization, and then natural resources and parks and recreation facilities. So this feedback is really reassuring to us when we formulated our focus on those redevelopment areas throughout the county, because it kind of, I guess, checks the box of those first 3 themes that I just mentioned. But we also thought there was additional opportunities to explore other areas of these key, mainly the natural resources, parks and recreation facility, and particularly people's comments that was the other half of those comments of preservation of land and maintaining its rural character. So this leads us to why we're here tonight, because we took those comments and we revised and came up with a new land use category that we think is in line with those priorities that we heard from their comments. This slide just simply shows you our online calming interactive map where people had comments, and you can see they dropped pins and pretty, expressed pretty details of what they thought about particular areas of the county. And I hope that you can all read this kind of long definition. So the revision to the draft is creating a new land use designation, prime agriculture, rural conservation, or park with a C. That actually wasn't planned, but it actually is a good acronym. That reinforces the community desire for more agriculture, land use, open space, and rural character. This definition is shown is on the screen, but the gist of it is this would apply to areas that are already in agriculture use, that are more suitable for agriculture use, or those areas where the extension of infrastructure would be significant. So in addition to the definition, we came up with 4 focus policies for this land use category. These focus policies aim to maintain the historic and rural character of these areas and believe that policies 3 and 4 are necessary to encourage large lot sizes and curtailing the expansion of water and sewer is important to maintain that rural character of the area that we're going to propose, and I'm going to show you in a second. The policies also recommend that the minimum lot areas in this area be raised to 5 acres. And finally, the designation would also assist us in support of land conservation easements that we review quite regularly that goes through the county. So I kind of talked about the why and what, so let's get to the where. The screen before you is the initial draft of the plan, and this is the Varina area, and this is what was displayed during the suggested sessions and online. And as expected, Varina was the main point of discussion when we went out to Highland Springs. So the large portion, and he showed me how to do the pointer, but I don't know if I remember. So as you can see, this large portion here kind of carried over our existing plan, and it's primarily designated for prime agriculture, and there's another one called rural residential. This area is, the majority of it is east of 295. And then the real big changes are really what you see in purple, and that simply reflects the county's recently acquisition of land for conservation and educational purposes. Some of it John Zazino just went over. So in looking at that, the foundation of the area was sort of already there. It was already designated that because of farming, active farming in the area and its location, and some of the neighborhoods that are developed that were already established and well over 1 acres. So starting with that foundation, you can see it just switched, and that new designation that we're talking about would simply combine the prime agriculture and rural residential in this area, combine them under the new designation of, I'm going to just say park. And the area again is east of 295 and just south of White Oak Swamp. This is a side-by-side comparison of the draft plan that we went out with, and you can see the most notable areas of change we just circled in red. We did that because there's a small area that is designated for a little bit higher density, SR1. But again, that area, I think that's like Harrop Hills, I think is already subdivided well over 1 acres. And then this portion here includes the area on Turner Road corridor and north of Route 5. The areas east of Elko Road and then south of Williamsburg Road. So it goes down to an Turner Road corridor north of Route 5 and areas east of Elko Road, south of Williamsburg Road. Yeah. So when we consider that in doing this, that encompasses about 27% or approximately 23,000 acres of Varina. So it's pretty significant. So we also want to know, in doing so, how does this impact our other areas that we're working on in the plan? We know that we grow approximately 1% every year. So how will we continue to accommodate for this growth as a county overall if we reduce the density in this mass area here? And also, this does not even count the area already designated for government, conservation easements, and other open space in Varina. So with the park designation, the projected growth in this area, only in that area, is reduced from about 9,300 units. And when I say 9,300 units, I mean at build out at its current zoning. So 1 acre lot. And our consultants worked on that and modeled if we did the 5 acres with the park, it would reduce that down from 9,300 to about 4,300 residential units in that area. And while again, it's unlikely that all those units would occur in any near future, it's still good to assess what that impact would be as we continue to model the land uses, as we finalize the plan in the next coming half year. So when thinking about that, it did raise the question. We did have a work session with the planning commissioner, and one of the members said, you know, well, what does this do to my district? So we're not proposing to change any revisions, what we already had, to any other areas. In consulting with our consultants, we think the areas that already designated for those redevelopment corridors and already other areas in the pipeline can accommodate the growth that we need through 2045. So in addition to finalizing this modeling, there remains several steps to complete the plan. We'll continue to work with consultants and work in various elements, including drafting the plan, including the introduction and key planning influences, which is posted on our website. And high quality livable spaces is another component of the plan that's going to be posted, we hope, probably the end of this month. And other chapters we're working on, just so you know, is our environment, which is the manage and sustainable growth, safe and connected spaces, and implementations. So that ends my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I just want two things: that I do have little QRC codes, business cards that you can have and to check out our Henrico Next. And two lucky people, if you do go on Henrico Next and leave a comment or something, feel free to take a nice Henrico Next coffee mug home with you as your gift. Yes.
So these are proposed changes from 2025 to 2046.
Yes.
Do they go into effect in 2046?
No. So when we have a title, it's really the horizon of 20 years. So, you know, all things, we would hope to have an adopted plan in 2025, 2026.
How many acres do we already have in conservation in the Varina district?
I'm sorry, repeat the
How
question.
many acres of land is already set in land conservation in the Varina district? It's quite a bit now.
I know we have about, 4,400 acres, and a small portion of that may be on the James and other, but the majority of it is in Varina. Yes, yes. So that is just quasi-government, you know, the nonprofit. So if I add, let me see if I have a figure for that. Let me find that and I'll get back to you, sir.
Okay, the other question I got, we'll just go through the land value. If you go into 5 acres east of 295 as far as land and house values. In my opinion, I think we'll drive the value of houses down by doing that.
I think that depends on, what the designation is now. It's certainly, if you were to develop and there was a high demand in that area for development, certainly it could drive the cost potentially lower because of those, you're trading off, I guess, those development rights, I guess, if you would say. Yes, sir.
Yes. What's going to be the real life impact of this actually on future development? Let's say this is adopted similar to what you have here. Joe developer, I found property owner's gonna sell me his 300-acre farm out there. I come to the county, get it rezoned for a higher density residential thing, and all that still goes in. Is there anything here to prevent or slow that down, or is it really going to make any difference?
It will make a difference. What it does is that this is the tool that when the board makes a decision on a rezoning, they use this as the guide of what the recommended density should be. So if a developer came in and acquired 100 acres in the area of park, the recommendation would be no less than 5 acres. So when they evaluate that, they'll say, they'll probably look at, okay, well, 5 acres, cap it at 250 and maybe work with them and negotiate some, clustering to have more open space. So some of that needs to be worked out. But what's that? Yeah, that's true. No utilities. What I do want to emphasize, though, this is the comprehensive plan. If this designation gets approved, it no way takes away the underlying zoning that already exists. So that would require, if this gets approved and there's support, the next step would be is to amend the zoning ordinance to create a new category. That would be the legislative arm of this land use designation. However, anybody who that already has rezoned lands, for instance, the Ridings, is entitled, and I'm just going to say that now, they could develop as they've already been approved. So this would really come in effect for those other areas that come to the board and want to rezone.
All right, question. I live right up on Elko Road. A lot of y'all know me. They're proposing to put 180 homes behind my house on the Robbins's land. They're only 80 feet wide. Okay. And that's in agriculture, and I'm in agriculture. They tell me I have to have 150 feet of road frontage to put a house.
Yeah. So
Now, what is that going to be?
there's nothing officially filed on that yet, so I can't speak in detail. They're probably taking the route of what they call cluster development, which the Code of Virginia actually implemented that all localities must have a cluster development ordinance. And so we do to comply. And with that, you use the same amount of the acreage and the density is the same, but they're allowed smaller lots to cluster, and then they're thereby utilizing more open space throughout the development.
So it doesn't help on the 5-acre lot that you just proposed, or you were saying about, that you couldn't develop no more.
Well, we would have to look at that down the road when we actually look at the standards within the zoning ordinance legislation. Yes.
So do we have a say on any of it, or that's y'all's department?
No, absolutely. This is a public process, and every one of you have a say in this. And
Nobody's even told everybody about it. I mean, nobody knows. We had to find out through Facebook and stuff.
okay, so on this, what you're talking about is potentially going straight to a subdivision. And if it meets the standards of the zoning ordinance and what the state told us, enable us to do, you have a say, but yes, they could go ahead and subdivide if they meet those standards. Just to tell you.
So it's
straight
got to
up.
go before zoning though, right?
No, it's
Even though it's agriculture now, they
yes,
can step in and do what they want.
because they comply with the density in A1 and they comply with the cluster development subdivision.
All right, well, if you've noticed already on Elko Road, since they cleared the land across the street from there where they're doing the data processing center, we got water standing on both sides of the road, and we haven't had any rain in the last month. Where's the water coming from?
I'd have to look in that. We'll look at that with the Department of Public Works. If you want to leave your name, I'll make sure someone gets to you this week. Okay.
I appreciate y'all coming. I'm just asking a question. And if it's gonna be that close to us, can we have a privacy fence on that subdivision?
We'll talk to the developer about that. Yes, sir.
So we have, actually, I found out about this subdivision from residents because at this point they had, don't go nowhere, Jay. They may have more questions. At this point, they hadn't filed anything, so I heard about residents, and so I'm just learning of the cluster development piece myself. So haven't really seen that used. Well, it's A1, so the state is giving permission for you to cluster housing in the spot. And so I think you have to have X amount of acres, et cetera. But it doesn't go, it's not a rezoning of the property. So it's a permissive use. Is that right, Gene? The cluster housing is a permissive use on A1 property. So right now on A1, you are able to build a house per acre on A1 property. I mean, on A1 land. Yeah, but but listen, if it's 200 acres and it's 188 homes or whatever be the case, that's a home an acre. So that, yeah, but it's the property itself is 200 acres. Yeah, but that's why they allow the clustered. So this is a state thing. I'm just learning. So it's not the developable land. The state is allowing, if you have 200 acres, a house per acre, you can do 200 homes, even if the wetland takes away some of the buildable lots. So, let me go back to your question. We are asking the developer to have a community meeting to meet with the residents, let let the residents know what's going to happen. Who do you know who it is? Yeah, I don't know who the developer is. Yeah. Yeah, so they haven't filed anything with us yet. So it's like all kind of word of mouth. But we've asked them to meet with us. I mean, not meet with us, meet with the community because it is an allowable use. Technically, they don't even have to have a community meeting. So if it was a rezoning, the thing about rezoning, you have to go through the full process. So this is not a rezoning of the land. I don't disagree with you at all. You know, I don't disagree. It's a state law that allows this. First time, if it's happened before, I don't remember where. So yeah, I don't remember this ever happening before. Yes, ma'am. Can we get the microphone? Yeah. Oh, somebody else. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
In keeping with the county's goal to maintain rural property, the new goal that has been established, there have been things put in place like the Varina Mine Lab and the walking trails, whatnot near Deep Bottom. Couldn't the county acquire that property and maintain the rural nature of it?
Should refer this to the county manager. I mean, we've had significant acquisitions all in the name of maintaining conservation. Malvern Hill, was it Varina Farms, and then the educational, but he's got it all.
So you all know that last year, Mr. Nelson convinced the Board of Supervisors to buy Varina Farm. By right, that would have, you could have put 2,000 homes on that property. By right. Now, Wilton Farm, you remember the number of units on Wilton Farm that were approved? 20, yeah, so it was over 3,000 homes on Wilton Farm approved many years ago. And ultimately, you know, the cost of roads and schools and everything, and then traffic. So the county bought Wilton. That was, our first acquisition was actually Malvern Hill. Malvern Hill, Wilton, Runnymede, and now Varina Farm. Sir, the answer to your question, I think, is roughly 9,000 acres have been preserved. And so the intent, these are literally 50-year plays. The intent is that many years into the future, you're going to have something in Varina that no one else has, which is open space. And I think, I dare say, you look anywhere on the East Coast with the battlefields and with this open space, I mean, Wilton itself has 2.5 miles of riverfront. So I certainly hope that answers your question, but this is entirely intentional. And Mr. Nelson started it with these conversations with the Board of Supervisors a number of years ago.
Yes.
With the designation, you have to have 5 acres to build a home. Doesn't that devalue those of us that own some farmland now versus the people who have been able to sell their farmland for multi-millions?
Yeah, I'm not in a position to speculate the home value, but in the locations that we are designating, the most significant would be from the 1 acre to the 5 acre. And I think land value really is also very much tied to demand in your higher density areas. So I wouldn't say it would devalue. It could increase it. I think it has to do with the priorities of that community.
I just have a few. I'll make it quick. I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. If you live here now and you have less than 5 acres, but you're zoned agricultural, you will continue to be zoned that way? Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Yeah, even with the rezone, correct?
Correct. So in order to change it, like a lot of this land is zoned A1. So you could keep it forever as A1, and that A1 minimum is 1 acre. So this really applies to preserve that development pressure in the future, that if they do want to rezone from A1, they would rezone to hopefully this new category we would amend the zoning ordinance with at that minimum 5 units per acre. So you would maintain your status. Yes, sir.
Clustering, what are you talking about? You talking about closed homes, or you're talking about cluster homes like that stuff they built up there across from YMCA? It's what we call them.
So this presentation is totally separate from cluster development, which is already an allowed type of development in our zoning ordinance that was put in place, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, but from the General Assembly said we had to do it. And the effort to do that from their perspective was to preserve open space. So by clustering homes, you're not eating up the land, and you're clustering, allowing more space along roadways.
I understand that. I'm
Okay.
asking, are they going to be like condominiums, or are they single family?
No, they're
with
single
minimal
family,
space?
single family on smaller lots. Same density.
And what about, since you guys talk about how you're looking into areas and you're trying to preserve this, and the county manager said it all, we already have a coyote problem around here and all that because of what happened over at White Oak Technology. Once they develop that one, I know the guy next door is going to sell, and then the person next door that's going to sell. We're going to have about 800 homes down here. So we already have wildlife running amok down here. We have wetlands that have been moved or disturbed or whatever, regardless of what people say, it's been done. Do y'all ever really look into that? Because that's going to make a difference up there.
Not specifically on, say, a species, but my hope as we develop the natural resources component of the plan, it won't get into those specifics, but lay out some strategies for, say, natural paths along some of our natural resources that we have, the wetlands, green belts, if you would, to examine the migration of that. Now, will that specifically focus on development and those impacts, and not to that detail? Okay.
So, am I understanding this correctly, that right now, if it's zoned agricultural, they have to have an acre of land to put a house on it?
with this new zoning overlay, I guess, is it an overlay? Is that what?
So this is not zoning at all. This is the land use designation that guides how we want to develop. The implementation tool for that is zoning. That's the legislative arm to do that. So it's not going to touch existing zoning. It really just has the designation, should development try to occur in the future, they would have to adhere to those policies and hopefully a new zoning category that is aligned with the park land use designation. And I know that's a little complicated, but think of it as layering.
All right, so I look out my front door at 12 acres of raw land that someone farms.
Mhm.
And I hope he continues to farm it. Jesus, please let him keep. But on that land is 12 acres. They could put 12 homes the way it's zoned right now with agricultural. Am I correct?
That's correct.
There's wetlands that are on that property that creates a moat around one of the homes that was built right on that same side of the road that the house turns into an island every time we get significant rain, and it's coming from the wetlands. But with this new designation that y'all are proposing with 5 acres, if this contractor that owns that 12 acres waits and does not develop those 12 acres, he's going to have 5 acres per house. So
No,
it would be 2 houses.
Again, these are details, so no, it would not affect the zoning and by right zoning we have. So if this gets approved, the designation, we will take a deeper dive where the community wants to go. And then we would amend the zoning ordinance, and that would apply, I guess, upon development. The discussion of whether the zoning would change by a larger government, I think is unlikely. So
I'm saying, I don't, no offense, but it sounds to me like there's a smoke and mirrors going on.
So there's not. What we're seeing is a lot of land developers going out to the more rural areas and applying for very dense developments, R5AC, townhomes. Those are things that we're seeing. And in some instances are like, well, we're doing this, there's a housing shortage and all that. That is all true. But with this area, what we've been hearing from the residents is we want to maintain that rural character.
We do.
So this is the arm to do that.
So how does the cluster homes affect it? If they can put cluster homes on a piece of property, doesn't that increase the density of the homes on that property?
And I can further this. So the clustering is a conservation tool to develop smaller lots with the same amount of homes. It cannot increase the density than you would have in an A1. All it allows is smaller lots to leave more open space, but you still have to get what your septic, your utilities, that they have to meet those standards. And if those are not available, they have to meet the standards of the health department to do so. So just because you have the land doesn't mean it's developable for that intensity.
So you can't go, cluster development doesn't allow you to go above what A1 designation allows you to do. But if somebody came in, went to the board, and the board decided it wanted to rezone a property, then they could go R5, and then you can do 5 homes an acre. Cluster development does not allow you to go beyond 1 home per acre of the parcel that is owned. So like cluster is not even really what we're talking about with this piece. Into a smaller place, into a smaller space, but it still keeps the rest of the area open. So, I mean, I guess if you look at it, in some environmentalist advocates, there's a piece of property up on Route 5, right at the corner of Laburnum and Laburnum and Route 5, that the Reynolds family owns. And a plan was brought to me to put a couple hundred homes there, but it's a couple thousand acres. But the homes are like right on top of each other. So what cluster development does is allow you to build a smaller home, cluster them together. But I don't want us to get stuck on cluster development. We're just talking about that one. Yeah, when we look at the map and we have prime ag, um, what we are hoping is that when we look at the eastern part of Henrico and we see prime ag, rural conservation, it is a reminder to us that we want to keep this part of Varina as green as possible. So that's really what this is about. It is about us not trying to create plots for rich people. We're not looking at it like that. We're looking at this really is a tool to discourage mass residential developments. And so, I look at this as a positive, not as a negative. Now, if you own a piece of property in the area and you've been holding it and try to sell it so that it can be, a huge residential development, it's probably not. You probably don't want to hear that, but I think this is a tool, and maybe just as simple as I can say it, I feel like this is a tool to try to keep this part of Varina as green as possible. So I'll just say it like that. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank you all for your purchase of the 9,000 acres. That's a lot of land, and your intent to keep it as open space. I would just also like to encourage you, I know I say this all the time, to please put that land in some sort of conservation status so that future administrations or, who knows what will continue to preserve it for open space and conservation. And that's really all I have to say. But thank you so much for purchasing that land.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, and I'd like to thank you also for your efforts to try to keep Varina green. That's definitely worth the effort. I do have one question though about, you mentioned the Ridings, that neighborhood that I thought was canceled at some time. Is that still something that's potentially going to happen?
Yes, sir. It still has development rights.
And I thought some of that was purchased by a conservation group.
Yeah, so it does. There's a lot of portions over the years that was placed in conservation easement. So while it had entitlement, it has morphed over time, but it still has some development rights there.
Is there any potential plan that you know of for the development?
Not that I'm aware of right now.
Do you know how many houses they could build?
Was it 600? I could give you a call tomorrow and give you those details. That I just don't want to tell you something off the top of my head.
Okay, so anyway, could you consider buying that piece of property as well?
Me personally, sure.
The county. It's a nice open area that has some historical value.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the chance to kind of respond to some of this tonight and ask some questions about it. The other night at Varina High School, when we finished up, we were in the back. We're creating an effort, a community group, and I spoke with Reverend Nelson about it. It's not sanctioned by the county, it's not promoted by the county, but it's with the cooperation of the county, I guess. And so we're going to try to meet pretty rapidly in a succession of meetings, about 2 weeks apart, to number one, have a better understanding of what's being proposed. Number two, provide an opportunity for some meaningful feedback where we kind of go through and see if there are some folks that have identified, even here tonight, some perhaps unintended consequences, and talk through those and see what they are and take the information back. And then finally to get together and formalize that so we can present as a group feedback there. So once we're done here, Bland is with me. We'll have all we got is a tablet. So we just want your name and an email. And if you're interested in being part of that, again, it will be a couple of quick meetings between now and the end of the year and then early next year so that we can continue to be part of this important conversation, because it is very important. It's an opportunity really to shape the area well beyond our lifetimes. And you know, I kind of look at it like this, and this I think is somewhat what Reverend Nelson was saying. And this is points on the scoreboard. Now, this conversation wasn't happening until it was brought forward with this particular designation. All. So our goal is not to take points off the scoreboard, but to add to what's there and to flesh it out and make it more meaningful. So I hope that you'll consider signing up for that. It's not going to be a lot of time, but it will be important. So thank you for the opportunity to say that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Montgomery. I'm going to open the floor now. Those are two presentations. Open the floor just for general questions, and hopefully between our Assistant Director of Planning, our Recreation and Park Director, and our County Manager, we can get you some answers. If not, we will always follow up and get you the answer to your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Reverend Nelson, I'm not sure which department, but on Elko Road, where the back end of technology used to be there, the issue with the truck several years coming down Elko Road, the county solution was to put a mound of dirt with what was supposed to be grass and everything else. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I had some visitors that came to my house and basically said it looked a hot mess. They put these bottles up across, they're coming down, it just looks horrible. It doesn't blend in with the trees and everything else. And I think that was just the thought process that it would all eventually blend in. But basically it is a mound of dirt. And it's just very unpleasing to see. Maybe it doesn't bother anybody else, and I understand the trucks and wanting to keep them coming. That had a lot to do with GPS. My husband is a former 18-wheeler, that a lot of the trucks came down Elko Road because of the GPS system, not so much just to get into the back, but as far as it just doesn't serve any purpose at all.
So I'm going to give you my email address. I'll give you my card. Just email me that, and we'll look into it and revisit it. Yep. Next. Yes, Mr. Tar.
Again, thank you for everyone coming out. I appreciate you taking questions on the topics and then also opening it up. Always appreciate that. Two quick ones here, completely unrelated here, but a question to you and to the county manager, I guess also. The city of Richmond and Chesterfield County over the last couple of years have put in along their school speed zones, the cameras. And they've been very successful in slowing down traffic and also collecting money for the county. I'm not opposed to either, but particularly the safety for the students in the buses. I was just driving today over Lavernum by Adams School, and it's had 25 of people just blowing through it. Same thing here on Elko Road. It goes down to 35. A lot of people do hit their brakes, neighbors here. Some just come blowing through it. The question is just, is the county looking into that, or any information on that?
We are, Mr. Tar. We're actually doing a school by school assessment at the moment. The reason we didn't jump on the Chesterfield and Richmond bandwagon with the speed cameras was because the companies that have those cameras really just make a lot of revenue. So at the time we looked at it, it was the county would get 10 cents on the dollar. And so it literally, so it was a bridge too far, but we literally are going and we're looking at crossing guards, crosswalks, school by school. Got a team doing that.
And also related just with traffic things here. Earlier this year, all of a sudden they went from having 5 to 10 cars backed up at Elko trying to get out of Williamsburg in the afternoons to backing all the way up to Elko Track Road, 50 to 100 cars backed up in there. And I saw when I came in through Technology Boulevard, there's a new sign up that says no QTS traffic through here, whatever. Is that where all those cars, everything are coming through? Because still, I went out the other, just yesterday, day before, and I was backed up past Elko Middle School. wait to get out of the light. It took 6 lights to get out of there.
Yes, sir.
If there's something that can be done to help keep the people that are working over in there, working in the White Oak Park to use Technology Boulevard and not cut through our houses and the school, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. So we're not only doing that, we were talking earlier, we're actually asking the contractors to start looking at staggered shifts so that you don't have everyone leaving at 4 o'clock. So, to be determined on that. Yes, sir.
And how about the tractor trailers that are coming out of Portuguese all the way down Elko Road? I pass one at least 4 times a week.
So that's a truck restricted. Yeah. So, we've done this before. I think, Ms. Goodwin actually suggested it. I'll never forget. We did it on White Oak. We did it on, yeah. And we wrote 110 tickets in 48 hours. And do you remember it was like 5 truckers and the rest were neighbors. So it was a constant 48 hours we had police out here. And but absolutely, if I can catch you and just give me that location again. It was years ago when Lumber Liquidators first moved in. We had the motors out here for 48 hours straight. And they wrote 110 tickets. Yeah, and they wrote the neighbors.
We got a handful of trucks and a whole bunch of peed off residents. So, yes. Yes.
Got one more question. Did y'all ever see the viral video of all the illegals at Facebook when they climbed the fence and ran away?
Yeah, I did.
I mean, how can Henrico County let those people work there that aren't qualified if they're illegals? And they're taking money from everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, we're not policing locations to check people's, well, you said what now? Say that one more time. You said, all right. Yeah, I saw the video, so I'll just say duly noted, and we'll make sure that we share that. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't think we can go on site arresting people. That's I guess that's what ICE is doing right now. But we need to probably circle around with the employers, etc. Anybody else have any questions for us while we're here? We are going to Monday. We'll be at the Henrico Theater during the daytime at 10 o'clock. Anybody have any other questions? I'm gonna call one last time before I head to Varina High School to catch the football game. Yes, ma'am.
I'm still curious about the data centers.
Mhm.
Will we be getting more?
Um,
As the one at Darbytown and by Mondelez was canceled, right?
well, the process for going through to rezone the property, they withdrew the application. So the company now is going to ask for vesting rights, which means that they think they have a legal right to provide the use there. And so the county will either say yay or nay. And then if the county says nay, then they'll appeal it to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And then if the Board of Zoning Appeal says nay, it'll probably end up in circuit court. But as it relates to rezoning the property for the use, it's gone. So no, every data center, hyperscale, which means the larger ones, if they want to locate in Henrico County anywhere, they have to go through a provisional use permit, which they didn't do at first. If a land, if it was an allowable use on the land, then if they purchased the land and they were able to, based upon what the uses were and the zoning classification, they can build there. But now, after I think May or June, the Board of Supervisors voted to put in a provisional use permit, which means every time a big data center comes, they got to go to the board, which means there's a lot of public hearings, etc. Public is involved, and so they don't just pop up and people don't know. Yes, sir. Hold on, let her get the mic so people online can hear you.
If the zoning is there for a data center, the board cannot deny the data center from coming in.
Well, now we can, yeah.
So therefore, talking about these cluster homes, you're saying the board couldn't do anything about that, but yet the board can do something about the data centers.
Well, let's back up. Let's back up. If someone comes in with a data center application because the board set up a provisional use permit process for all data centers now, then yes, they have to go through the provisional use permitting process. I want to just make sure that we understand. I don't think we may not be doing a good job explaining the cluster piece. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it. So let's just use 10 acres.
I understand the cluster principle 100%. What I'm saying here is asking is that if you can change the zoning on someone that's, I was at those meetings, if you can change the zoning for someone that wants to put a data center in there that was allowed before you changed it.
Yeah, but we didn't change the zoning. It is about the use, the data center use.
But you still can deny them, or you cannot deny them for putting that data center there.
Going forward, if the cluster housing is still falls under A1. So it is so if it's, again, if it's 10 acres and it's 10 homes, the cluster housing just allows you to put the homes in that particular A1 zoning, but they are clustered together. Even if wetland, the point is for us to try to shrink the usage of green space so that we can have more.
But the legal limits of the board is the legal limits of the board that they cannot stop that because it was allowed. But yet, if the data centers in the same sense were allowed in those manufacturing districts, but yet the board overruled and said they had to come to the board, so the board had the opportunity to say, no, you cannot put that data center there.
I can answer this pretty simply. So the state, the code of the state, the General Assembly mandates that all localities in Virginia has to have a cluster ordinance. So no, the board is not authorized to deny them because the state said you have to allow them. They have not. Yes. Correct. And there have been efforts over this past General Assembly, and data center is going to be a big topic, believe me, again, in General Assembly, and you're going to have lobbyists who says the state needs to allow them and take it out of them, or the opposite. So we did a lot last General Assembly fighting that legislation that says you must have them. On the flip side, there's legislation that says there must be more control. But the question is no, they cannot deny a subdivision that's clustered. It's completely different than the data center. It's a land use designation to allow the board to weigh the decision should a rezoning come in to develop, say, townhomes or 5 units per acre, or a lot of things that we're seeing being developed elsewhere lead into this area that is rurally, has a rural character. We want to preserve that. I think that's a fair way of saying it. Yes, sir. Give him the microphone.
I just have one question.
No, we coming back, just let him.
My understanding for all the back and forth that's been going on here is a tract of property out here. It's currently A1. This gets put in with the new, program here. If it stays A1, they could still have that, where this would come into effect if somebody, developer, wants to change it to an R2, 3, 12 or whatever to have a higher density, whatever.
Yes.
That's when the board would consider it, the planning commission and the board for rezoning, and that's when the 5-acre piece would come in as the recommended change to it.
Exactly.
Phase A1, that doesn't, it
Right.
really doesn't apply.
It's a valid tool to weigh and balance it what the vision of the community was. Yes, sir.
Let's go back to a young lady in the back with the table.
Young, aren't you sweet? So I'm gonna piggyback off of her question about the mound of dirt. And I'm sorry to go back. I know you gotta go to your game.
Oh, no, I'm not rushing. I was just,
So
yeah.
I do have a question / request. When we were putting together the plans for building the Fisher Memorial, I had already built in a large buffer between whatever's going to be developed on the other side of that 2 acres. So that's why the memorial is going right up on that corner so that we can have that wooded buffer. What I'm asking for is for all of the data centers that are going into those spaces. And I understand there's architects, there's design, there's usage, there's all the rights and things. Can we have larger buffers between the industrial park on these newer buildings so that we have a large enough tree line buffer to maybe keep out some of the extra lights, the extra noise? Yes, the trees are already there, plus keep that buffer. Because if you look at if you go down Elko right now, where they're building the latest one, there's like one line of trees. You can see every tree and everything that has already been cut down right there. So is it possible that we can look at when we're developing these, because they're gonna come, that we can have larger buffers?
So there are already proffers. Anything that goes up has already been agreed upon. So there are not any new things that should be coming in Tech Park. I don't think we have much space left to do anything else hyperscale. So I need to go back and look. I know with the provisional use permit, we put in deeper, I think it was like 500 feet buffers. I know we don't have that here. I can't remember if it's 300 or it's 300. So let us just go back, because some of this is just about relationships at this point. So thank you for, I appreciate it. All right. Yes.
On the cluster homes that are proposed up here, what is going to be the income level on the families in the homes?
Yeah, we don't know because they haven't filed anything yet. They've not filed anything with the county of Henrico yet, so we really don't know anything. And when you say income levels, you mean like what are the prices of the homes? Yeah, we're not sure. I've not met. I don't know who's developing them. Don't know anything about the plans, etc.
So it seems like this new prime agricultural designation is kind of based on what we've seen in Goochland and Hanover, where it looks like a lot of these old farms are still getting carved up into these 5-acre lot subdivisions. So can you explain how that's going to preserve farms and fields and the rural character if it's just getting carved up into neighborhoods?
The plan is to try to keep this area of Varina as green as possible, and the least amount of homes we have out here, residential units out here, the better. So that is our goal. We're not, you know, before you got here, I saw your Instagram video, and I I disagree with your perception that we are trying to create rich people neighborhoods. The reason that I support this is because it, to me, lets people know that we don't really want to make this part of town huge residential subdivisions, etc. So if somebody owns a piece of property and they want to put a house on 5 acres of land and it's their property, they have that right. I'm not really understand. I don't understand what you're asking, I guess. What are you getting at when you say this model of 5-acre subdivisions?
Well, I guess that's kind of the point, is that I understand the goal. I'm just not sure how this ordinance gets at that goal of preserving those big green tracts of land.
Yeah, it's not a it's an overlay. It's a proposed use of land. The same way we would say this would be good for office. This would be good for business. This would be good. It's a proposed use. It's not it's not going to be an ordinance. It's going to be an overlay. It would have been for the data centers. Well, yeah. Well, I don't even know if it's that either. Yeah, it's not that either. Yeah, so land use designation of a comp plan, it is, the aim is not to create, yeah, that's, can you come explain that one more time with the A1 and the, because I think we had got it. I think most of you understood it, and just explain that one more time, bro.
So it's not perfect, but it's better than what we said. This is not a zoning and it's not a zoning overlay. To implement this further, we would have to examine the possibility of creating a new zoning district to be the legislative arm of this land use designation of the comp plan. The comp plan is good for intention and our aspirations as we look at development, how it evolves in the future. What we're saying here is we think that the rural land, any future on notice, shouldn't, even though they can do it by right with 1 acre if they're zoned A1, I would certainly say 1 acre subdivisions are more chewed up than 5.
Okay, everybody seems to be hot on the data centers we have tonight. I want give you a general idea. Data centers, okay, to give you a general idea. This meeting right here is now being live from by data basically going on. One day you had Amazon servers went down. They have about 20% of the service market. I'm not a fan of having a data center built, but you gotta sit and look at everybody that has a cell phone, right? Everybody in here has a laptop, internet at home, all that runs off of data. So you gotta sit down and think about it. You gotta have data to run everything we got going on in this and the other. Because one day I got shut down at work. Data cost me a lot of money. I made it on work, but give you an idea, data will cost you a lot of money if it's not working. Everything you got in this room is run off of this radio and this one data.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other questions? Hopefully we didn't confuse you guys anymore. I think we agree with most of you, and I think Gene started off by saying that as we have, whether it's surveys or meetings, this was a request from the citizens to try to keep portions of Henrico, generally this part of Henrico, as green as possible. I mean, that was an overwhelming request that came from the citizens. Our staff heard it, and this was a proposed idea. So we're just in the idea stage, and we want to continue to have conversation, discussion, and you continue to let us know where you are, okay? If you know anyone that would have loved to come tonight or miss Monday, we have one more meeting on next Monday. Same information, just a different place. All right? We good? All right. Have a good evening. Thank y'all for coming out.